Okay, so we go from one major franchise to another, and in a little less, it's going to be 9 days. Um, it's going to be the biggest thing in arguably 2023. No, but no doubt here for the channel, and that is the video game adaptation of The Last of Us. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 3 weeks or 3 months, this is, and by the way, go check out the little video that Ben and I did right up there, parts 1 and 2, about why we think The Last of Us could be the greatest video game made. And I'm not going to, you can go and Google all the backstory and everything else. But this has the potential to just knock everybody's socks off. So, Craig Mazur, who was a producer and showrunner on Chernobyl, he did 5 episodes. He's actually on board with Neil Druckmann. And he's actually going to be directing an episode of this. And so this is, just from the trailer, it looks amazing. Bella Ramsey actually was hesitant about doing this role, but she's the type, she's 19 now, she really didn't want to be too famous. She liked to blend in, and she liked to say and whatever. But, now she's in the spotlight for sure. So this show is going to pick up and do the whole first show. So in the article that from the Hollywood Reporter, Neil Druckmann has basically said that it's going to cover the whole first show. So a lot of questions have been answered. I know, Kyle, you had been talking about is it going to cover the Left Behind DLC, or it's going to stop in the middle. So it's going to cover the first show. The other thing, too, is it's going to focus a lot of the initial outbreak. What happened? How did it happen? So it's going to keep flashing back on occasion. And that's going to be interesting, too. But the biggest thing that I was really wowed at is there have been multiple reports out there that this show, this first season, has cost more than the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones. But, moreover than that, according to some people in Alberta, where it was shot and everything else, this one episode, a budget for one episode, is exceeding $10 million. $10 million. And it could go upwards of 15. By the time they're done, there's a possibility this could have been $100 million one season. Which begs the question, number one, how profitable do you think this is going to be for HBO and HBO Max? Because let's face it, when you're doing a show like this, you want to do what the fans want and everything else. But you have to get an ROI, or a return on investment. Okay? So if this is going to cost you $100 million, you're looking at trying to make $200 to $300 million just to break even. And number two, what I think that was said, a really important thing that was said, is that they're going to do a part 2. So I'm really wondering, how do you think this could... I guess my question is this. How much do you think they have to make to break even, first of all? And second of all, what is going to drive subscribers to this show?
I don't really know how TV works in compared to film, because when it comes to television, how do subscribe, how do people watching a show factor into the money angle? But I will say, I'm glad you mentioned the popularity thing, because I think I'm kind of on your side, David, but I'm kind of not, because you are really enthusiastic about The Last of Us. It's very clear to see. You are very excited about this show. And I'm excited about it, but I wouldn't say I'm as enthusiastic about it as you, because I haven't seen the show yet. And I also think the thing is that, when it comes to video game adaptations, we've been through the mill with good ones and bad ones, and I think that this is going to be really good. But I don't know how the audience is going to react, because like when it comes to this show, I mean, look at like some of the biggest games of all time, whether it be Assassin's Creed, whether it be like Sonic the Hedgehog or Super Mario Brothers, and we've seen like those movies. They have not performed as well. I mean, Sonic did pretty well, but most of the time, video game movies do not do that well, because I think people mistake like the video game audience to be a massive, movie audience that will go see a movie, but really the video game audience is a relatively small percentage of film goers, just like a comic book movie audience. A very small percentage of them have read a comic. And I think where The Last of Us is going to shine is how good the show is and how the word of mouth spreads. Because thank God that this show is going to be on HBO, so it gets the week by week release instead of, the Netflix, all drop in one day episodes. And I think that's going to really help it, because a lot of people will be like, hey, have you heard of this show called The Last of Us? People that don't even know about the video game. And they'll be like, The Last of Us, what's that? It's this really good show on HBO. It has zombies in it. And then people might go out and start watching it. In fact, that article does mention how, like, Craig, I don't know if it was Craig Mazin or Druckmann mentioned how they want audience members to be watching this show and not be like, oh, well, this is a terrible video game adaptation. They want them to be like, wait, this is a video game? And that was a really cool bit, because we've seen, as I said, time and time again, video game movies really fail. And I think this one, you got the right cast, you got the right showrunner, and even the guy that really created this entire thing is also involved. So I think it's also, the thing with The Last of Us, unlike a lot of video game movies, is it's kind of small scale. And that's what also the article discusses, how it's not like, laser guns fighting this whole war. It's really an intimate personal story between the two characters, Joel and Ellie. And that is something that I think will definitely be in this adaptation's favor, because it will rely way more on the characters than it does on, say, the action or the special effects. And I think a lot of the money is going towards the basically like all the the infected in this show, whether it's the clickers or the bloaters. Like, you're going to really see, I think, based on the trailer, incredible makeup and special effects on these characters. But yeah, I think it's going to be really, really popular, especially when the first episode drops. And we will be discussing it the night the first episode drops. We will be doing a spoiler cast on each episode. And I think the biggest takeaway, though, I got from this article was that it mentions at the very end this season adapts like the entire game. So they're not saying that it's going to leave off on a cliffhanger where, the next season they make is going to adapt like the second half of the game, which is really interesting to hear, because then they mention in the article that they plan on adapting The Last of Us Part 2. And they make this weird reference to Game of Thrones that I think it was not really the apt response, because they said something on the order of, we don't want to run out of stories, so we're not going to be like Game of Thrones. And I mean, the thing is that there was a story in place. It wasn't that they ran out of stories, it's just that they didn't exactly have the stories available. So I think that we will see where it goes, because it seems to me, David, I don't know if you're getting this idea also, I think this show's only going to be a 2-season series. I don't think we're going to get, The Last of Us on for 5, 6, 7 seasons, which is really good, because I think what that means is that this isn't going to be like a Walking Dead, where The Walking Dead is a show that ran on way too long. It's still not over. As much as they want to say, The Walking Dead had its final season, there's still 5 more spin-offs on the way with the same characters from the show continuing their stories. So The Walking Dead is still not over. I don't know when it will end. But when it comes to The Last of Us, it will end. I mean, unless they, as they said, they're thinking of a third video game, but most likely we will get 2 seasons, maybe 3 tops, and that will be a nice, I think, bow, because I don't think that it will overstay its welcome.
So, a couple of things to unpack there. Number one, you're absolutely right. They are only going to adapt the story. So they're only going to do the first 2 games. That's it. Number 2, the fact that they are ending the first season with the first game is huge. That means there is going to be a cliffhanger. That means, I think what they're going to do too is put, I think one of the flashbacks that we're going to see is the Left Behind in there. So they're going to adapt both of those in there. Number 3, you're right. I am super excited for this because this is, to me, you're talking about, this is a story-driven game. Well, you have 2 dynamic characters who, frankly, don't like each other 2/3 of the way through the game. And there's that scene which it is one of the most powerful, emotional scenes in the game. And so essentially Ellie runs away and Joel basically goes after her. And so they have a little chat in the room. And so when he opens the door, she's just sitting there reading a young girl's diary. This is all they had to worry about, boys and movies and what skirt to wear with which. And so the point is, he's trying to say, you aren't this important, you don't realize this. And it's the most powerful scene in the game. And as the game progresses, he starts to learn to love her as a daughter. Not just, once again, that goes back to that scene in the trailer where she says, I'm not family, and he says, no, you're just cargo. So you see that dynamic. The fact is that this is going to be, that's the scene I'm really looking forward to. If it's any sort of what it is in the game, look out.
Mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you.
It is the most divisive video game of all time. Hands down. Because of what happens. Spoilers, guys. If you haven't seen it already, spoilers. Joel gets killed. And not just gets killed.
Wait, what?
Brutally killed.
No way.
And so it's the way he gets killed. But the way they're able to tie it all together is genius. And so you play as Ellie the first third of the game. And then you play, and this is what makes it divisive. Then you play as Abby, the person that beat
and killed Joel.
And killed Joel. And so that being said, now you have to.
But David, this is the one thing I gotta say about this though. It's that we're in a position that the people that read the Game of Thrones books before watching the show were in, say the Red Wedding, for instance, right? So when the Red Wedding came on television, a lot of people that watched the Red Wedding live had not read the books. And a lot of those people were shocked and appalled. And that's what's going to happen with The Last of Us if they adapt part 2, because then a lot of people that are going to probably be watching at the time still have not played the games, and they will be like, wait, what just happened? So they're going to also have to do that in a really, respectful way, because you're not going to want to have a situation where your lead in the first season of the show, is killed off, and then everyone's going to be like, wait, what happened? And that's another thing with the show. There's this article was so fascinating where it talks about like the way that it's going to tell like this almost non-linear structure where you're going to see in the show what life was like for people before the whole infected outbreak, and that's going to be really different, because that is something we haven't exactly seen in the games. So
I mean, they basically touch on it. They touch on it a little bit in the second part, where Abby goes down into a hospital, and it was like ground zero.
Yeah.
And she encounters one of the biggest and baddest monsters in the Rat King.
That level was so hard.
Yeah, it really was. Anyways, guys, I'm excited for it. He's excited for it. Millions of other people are excited for it. What do you guys think? Are you excited for The Last of Us? Are you excited that they're going to do 2 seasons of it? Mm-hmm. What do you think of the budget? How do you think they're going to make their money back? And if it was this much for this budget, what do you think the budget for The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be? Let me know down in the comments.